Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dev Ki Jai. Welcome back for another session of storytelling and realizations. Recently, I've been wondering what happens when we are faced with some of the darker aspects of ourselves, the thoughts that may not be so spiritual, and the parts of ourselves that don't feel so enlightened. What do we do with those difficult parts of ourselves? What do we do when life throws those difficult situations at us? What happens when we are thrown those curveballs? How do we react? And how can we, as seekers on this spiritual journey, find a solution that helps us both materially and spiritually? How can we find a solution and call for help in a way that benefits all aspects of our lives? So in that regard, I want to read to you a piece that I adapted from the Bhagavad Gita called Courage in Confession. The Gandiva clattered to the floor of the chariot, lifeless and devoid of all potency. Arjuna's fingers cramped from the tense grip he had on his bow. It had been slipping from his hands for several moments. He tightened his hold on the grip in the middle of the bow, but eventually lost out, and the bow, which seemed to have a mind of its own, fell from his hands. Arjuna and his Gandiva were like one entity, nearly inseparable, but now they were at odds. When Arjuna looked at his Gandiva, all he could see was what he was being forced to do. All he could see was the thing he could not do. He looked up and peered across the clear and open battlefield. On the opposing side were all of his relatives in one way or another. Arjuna bowed his head under the weight of his coming actions. How could he fight them? And if he fought them, at least some of them would be slain. He knew this for certain. For the first time in his life, he cursed his knowledge of weaponry and warfare. What good was it now, used on all those whom he loved? Love. What did the word even mean? Arjuna was sure that he no longer knew. If he loved his family, if he loved his teachers, if he had any love for those who had taught him everything he knew about life, could he now look at them with cold eyes, filled with nothing but duty, and kill them all? No. It wasn't possible. This war was not possible. This task was not possible. He wouldn't do it. It was as simple as that. His stomach lurched, and he was sure he would be sick. His legs shook, his hands shook, and he sobbed as fresh, hot tears of dread and despair made their way down his cheeks. It seemed a simple conclusion that he would not do battle. Even his body refused to cooperate. Giving in to the demands of his limbs, Arjuna's knees buckled, and he sat heavily upon the upholstered seat within the chariot, rocking the carrier's frame. He swallowed, but his throat constricted. It felt so tight that not even air could get through, and he clasped at his throat, clawing with his hands as he tried to gasp, but feeling as though he was sucking in air through a narrow straw. His breaths came quicker and quicker, while sweat broke out across his brow. This was impossible. He was one of the best warriors of his time, and now he would go down in history as a monster. Men would be left lifeless. Women and children would be left without the heads of their families. The loves of their lives would be ripped from them, and they would all look to him as the cause. They would blame him. Arjuna would blame himself. His head held in his hands, feeling the full weight of the crown on his head, a crown which came at a terrible price. He spoke in a quiet, sorrowful voice. O Govinda, I shall not fight. At this point, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is facing his entire dynasty on the battlefield. He is on one side, and he finds them all on the other. And he turns to his friend, his teacher, his guide, his cousin, and at this point his charioteer, Krishna. And he says, I can't do this. I can't fight this battle. I can't kill all of these people. There must be some other way. And Krishna looks at him and reminds him first of the warrior that he is. And then Krishna, in essence, tells Arjuna, you can't run from this anymore. Krishna knows that Arjuna and his brothers have tried to talk, have tried to mediate, and have literally tried to hide in order to avoid this war. And Krishna knows that there is nothing else to be done but fight. He tells Arjuna, you can try and run, but you won't be able to. There is no running from this anymore. And Arjuna looks at his dearest friend and he says, then what do I do? What do I have left? And in 18 chapters, after Krishna hears that Arjuna is going to surrender, and he looks at his friend and he knows he is down on his knees with nowhere else to turn. Krishna explains the workings of the entire universe, and then he tells Arjuna, lean on me, rest on me, take refuge in me, find your support in me. I am bigger than this battle. I am stronger than any obstacle that you will face. I will carry you through this, and I will bring you out on the other side. Lean on me, and I will work this all out in your favor, and I will do all of this because I love you. We may not be facing an external war, but the war is always raging on within us. And when we come up across things that we don't like about ourselves, when we see the darker aspects of our personalities, when we are faced with trauma, when we come across difficult hardships and obstacles thrown within our path, we can't always run away. We can't hide from them. We might think that that in itself is tolerance. We might think that that makes us better, but hiding, running away, pretending that these negative emotions and these negative instances in our lives don't exist, that does not make us stronger, nor does it make us more spiritual beings. But asking for help just might. Asking for help and divine guidance might be the thing that makes us stronger, makes us more spiritual, and makes us better equipped to handle the hardships that come our way. True bravery And courage then might be in confessing the hard things that we face, and then watching as the light of mercy comes to our aid. So I ask myself, what does courage, humility, and purpose all have in common? And for me, it's that they are truthful. They are examples of how we follow and acknowledge the truest things about ourselves. When we dig deep and we see what is true, that is when we find courage and humility and our purpose. And when we see that those true things about ourselves are too big for us to handle, then we can ask for divine guidance. We can say, I need assistance. I need support. I need encouragement. I need you. And when we do that, Krishna promises that he will come to our aid every single time. So we can ask again and again and again. The miracle is in asking. After Arjuna asks for help and Krishna agrees, with that support, Krishna helps Arjuna to perform incredible, amazing, impossible feats and actions. Just imagine what amazing things we might be able to accomplish if, like Arjuna, we are able to harness the courage in confession. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I will see you again in the next video.